That's right, Dirt Dauber fans. She starts and stops and runs under her own power. On this episode, I'm going to take you through all of the little things that I've done in the last few months. It's been several months since my last video, mostly just because all the things I've done on here are just little tiny things that are kind of boring, but I'm going to catch you up on all those little things and let you know what's coming next for this FJ40 and DirtDauberGarage. Thanks for watching. All right, number one on the to-do list is get this shop straightened up. As you can see, it's a mess. Second law of thermodynamics, all things are moving to a state of disorder, is certainly true in this shop. And so I got to get this place cleaned up, and that's number one on the list. All right, here's a couple things I think I'm going to try to do today. I've got this ASIN clutch cylinder. That's going to go right down in there. That's the old one. I'm not sure if the old one works or not. I'm going to just go ahead and put a new one on since I've got it. I also have to take these brake calipers off. They are no good. As you can see, that nipple right there, that bleeder is so bad I can't get it off. So I'm just going to replace these calipers. So I got to pull those two things off. I need to clean up this carburetor linkage right there. Take that off, clean that up, get this carburetor linkage hooked up. And then if I've got time, I'll go ahead and hook up the clutch cylinder and maybe start bench bleeding the master cylinder over here for the clutch. And then I got to do the same for the brakes. I got to do the rear brake line to get that hooked up and start bleeding that. But try to get to these maybe today, see how much I can get done. All right, here's a little tip for you guys. Take your old bolts, anytime you take something out, not just brake calipers and anything, anytime you take bolts out, put them back where they go. I'm just going to put them in here and just turn them a few times so they don't fall back out. And that way, if something happens and it takes me a week or two to get new brake calipers, I know right where my bolts are and don't misplace them. If I left them in my toolbox here, or if I set them up here on top of my battery like these bolts, I might not know where they go. So put your bolts back in there, and then next time I'm ready to put the new caliper on, I'll have my bolts right there ready to roll. A couple updates. I don't know if I put this in a video earlier, but there's a brake line that comes out of this distribution block right here. This is for the master cylinder, the clutch cylinder, but the brake lines come down here, and this brake line goes up here and then goes up underneath and connects up here inside. See if I can get an angle of what's up in there. Connects there, up in there. And since it goes along this splash guard here, this plate, I didn't want it to wear a hole at any place that it might touch. So I put a small piece of corrugated protection, taped it up, then put another one on top of that, taped it up. So that should last a long time, not have to worry about it, you know, where it's touching here, wearing a hole in that brake line. So I still have to obviously put the calipers on here, and then all of these brake fittings, I'll go back and just check them one more time, make sure they're good and tight before I bleed the brakes. And then this brake line here goes back to the back there, and I don't remember if I have attached that or not. Maybe I did, but I gotta check that. So anyways, before I bleed this thing, I will check all these brake lines and make sure that they're good and tight. A couple other things I need to do is, as you can tell, this is the wires for this distributor are from the old distributor, not this HEI one, and so these wires aren't the correct ones. They worked enough to get it running and to test it, but I'll have to get some new wires for it, do a couple more things like that. There's a breather right there for the crankcase. Just all kind of little things I've got to still do before this thing's gonna be ready to you know, run for good. The biggest thing I've got going on is all this. This is the wiring harness, obviously, and as you can see, it is not installed. It is in here, and I've hooked up a few things, but as far as actually, you know, running electricity to the distributor and all that stuff, I've got to figure out what is what coming out of this thing, so that I can get it wired up correctly. We're going to bleed the brakes today. We've put new brake calipers on. All the lines are brand new. We're going to make sure everything's tight one more time before we actually start pumping fluid through this. But the first step, I'm sure there are videos out there that tell you how to bench bleed a master cylinder. So we took some old brake lines here and cut them short. They're about 5 inches here, and then kind of just bent them to where they'll feed the fluid right back into the reservoir. We're going to put some fluid in these reservoirs and then start pumping this. And once we get fluid all the way through this master cylinder and all the air out of here, and we're just seeing fluid come out of here, then we'll hook the brake lines up and bleed the brakes. We'll start with the farthest one, passenger side rear, and we will pump that one, loosen the little nipple right here that's on the calipers and the brake drums until all the air comes out. We'll just go all the way around a couple times, make sure we got all the air out, and then hopefully this thing will have brakes. All right, I'm going to fill these reservoirs up with brand new brake fluid. I'm gonna fill them up to the max line. Probably will have to put more in once they start pumping it through the master cylinder. We'll definitely have to put more in once it starts going into the brake lines, because what it's doing is it's going to replace all that air that's currently in the system with the fluid. I'm leaving those screens in there just to make sure if we drop any dust or particles, I want to make sure that this fluid is as clean as possible. Cut it off. It's not coming out of the back one. All right, we bled the brakes all the way around, and we've got a little bit of a pedal. We're not going to know for sure how well the brakes work until we get it running and drive it, because it's vacuum assisted power brakes. So next thing we got to do is we got to do basically the same thing for the cylinder, for the master cylinder for the clutch. So we're going to bench bleed this, get all the air out of here, then we'll bleed the clutch and see if we can get the clutch to engage. And then, since we have fired this thing up, I don't have the fuel lines run, and obviously the wiring harness is not all hooked up, but we can get this thing running enough, maybe run a hose to, I think this one might go down here to the exhaust. No, it sucks, so it probably comes somewhere in here. We'll figure out where this power brake booster vacuum line goes, maybe here on the crankcase, and see if we can get this thing, maybe drive it up and down the street today. We'll see. All right, so January 1st, got a little bit done today, got back in the saddle as far as working on this thing. We got the master cylinder for the brakes bled, brakes are working. We got the master cylinder, clutch cylinder bled down here, slave cylinder, brand new slave cylinder is bled, and the clutch is engaging. We cranked it up for just a minute and hooked up a fuel line to a gas can, and we now have fuel pumps working. We got it to run for about a minute, but I don't have the radiator hooked up, or there's no water in there anyway, so we got to get water in there, do a couple more things. Probably we'll go ahead and just run the fuel lines the right way instead of just running them through here into a gas can. We'll put it in this brand new gas tank I got. Then hopefully have this thing where we can get it going. I was hoping to maybe drive it up and down the street today, but that didn't happen. Here's my driver's seat. I think I'm gonna need a new cover for that. Pretty sad shape. We pulled that down in case we needed to throw it in to drive around the block. Passenger seat's over here. So anyway, still got a lot to do. It can be overwhelming for sure, trying to get all these little things done, but what I tell myself is just go one at a time, one project at a time, little steps. And so today, brake lines bled, clutch line bled, carburetor pumps, fuel pumps working. So a few steps forward, and we'll come back and keep moving ahead on this thing. Thanks for watching.